So hello guys. So today's lecture is related to load balancer. Okay. So previous lecture, what we have seen, we were horizontally scaling our applications. So what we were doing, we were deploying our applications. In more than one server. So suppose this is server 1, server 2 and server 3, right. So we were deploying our applications in more than one server, and the distributions of load was getting handled by one module that I told yesterday, that is load balancer, right. So if you are not able to relate this one, please check the previous 3 lectures, you will able to relate what exactly we are talking about, right. And we were sending request to our load balancer, and whenever user is sending, whenever you are using a client, right, any client is sending a request to a load balancer, request to access these applications, first the request coming to load balancer, and load balancer is distributing the request among these 3 server. Okay. If server 1 is free, it will distribute to server 1. If server 2 is free, it will distribute to server 2. If server 3 is free, it will distribute to server 3, right. So, the first job of load balancer, what we understood is spread of traffic, right. So, what happening? The traffic is going to be distributed by load balancer across the servers, right. This is the first work. Okay. Next is, just think, if server 1, server 2, server 3, right, suppose server 2 got crashed by somehow, right, then whether load balancer will distribute the load to S2 anyhow, right, these are questions. So, now, till now what we understood, load balancer is going to distribute our load among these 3 servers, right. Now, if any of the server is got dead or crashed or overloaded, okay, any of these, right, then is load balancer is going to send the request to S2 or not? No, right. Why? So, second work of load balancer is health check, okay, health check. So, what health check means? So, what load balancer is going to do? Load balancer is going to ping these servers continuously to check the health, right. If any of the server, right, is not giving the response back in the health check ping, then what load balancer will do? Load balancer will cut out these connections, right, and load balancer now will distribute the traffic between S1 and S3, right. And when the developer comes and fixes this S2 server, right, then what it will do? It will again start connecting to S2. You got my point? So, what happened? This is a health check. Okay. So, whenever you are configuring one load balancer, you have to give the health check URL. Okay. If you are configuring manually, if you are using any managed services like AWS and all, you no need to configure that much. But if you are configuring manually, you have to give the health check URL to check whether these servers are actually alive or not. Okay. And this is the 2 main work of load balancer. Okay. First is traffic distributions, another is health check, right. This is the basic work of the load balancer, but load balancer does some extra thing also, right. 3 things. Third thing, these applications for this particular client, load balancer is giving single entry point, right. So, you can mention single entry point, okay, for the applications to use. The fourth thing is, okay, some of the advanced load balancer, I will talk about the advanced load balancer. Load balancer is 2 types generally, one is L4, another is L7. So, what is L4, what is L7, I will talk about it later on in this lecture. So, what happens? This L7, right, does some of the extra thing to improve performance of these backend servers. What they do? They decrypt, right, the HTTP request, right, they decrypt the HTTP request. So what happening, whenever a client is sending a request, they send a HTTPS request, right. So this HTTP request gets always encrypted while traveling through channel, right. So what load balancer does, load balancer will decrypt this HTTP request and send a clean request to the server. So what will happen this way, server will no need to decrypt again, get this request done, process done, right. So what is happening, load balancer is taking this overhead of decryptions of SSL, right. You understand, this is going in a high level, right, I understand. So what happens, whenever a data packet is getting sent from client to load balancer, it will always come through HTTPS protocol. So in this HTTPS protocol, all data packet comes with a encryption format, okay, SSL encryption format. So what is happening, so here this load balancer will decrypt that particular token and it will send a clean request to S1, S2, S3. If this load balancer would not have done this, then this particular job of decrypt of that particular request should have to be done by S2, S3 and S3. So it will be a overhead for S2 and S3, right. So this is also work is done. Another thing is HTTP URL based routing, right. What that means? That means till now whatever we have seen, load balancer is distributing the load across these three servers, and what we have discussed till now, the applications which is deployed in these three servers is the same applications, right. So now what happening, this load balancer is not balancing the load based on the URL, right. It is balancing whatever request it is coming, it is distributing across these three irrespective of what type of request is coming, whether it is a GET request coming, POST request coming, if it is for user service coming, whatever service it is just directly sending the raw data packet to S1, S2 and S3, right. But L7, if you use L7, right, some of the advanced applications layer level load balancer, that is a L7. So what it does, it can route HTTP URL based routing. So what do you mean? Suppose a request came API based user, then this request can be sent to the user service microservice, right, and another request came API based, suppose product, then it may redirect to the product service. So what that means? That means maybe if a load balancer is handling load between multiple microservice, not the same microservice, then the HTTP based URL routing has to be there, right. But if a load balancer is balancing the load between particular same microservice, then you need a basic load balancer, that is L4 load balancer. I will talk about L4, L7 in a detailed manner later. So second thing, 6 things what load balancer can do. Load balancer can cache static content. So what static content? Suppose if you are sending a response, suppose the FAQ page, okay, FAQ page of any website, right, this is the static content, right, that doesn't get generated automatically, right. So it's just a page gets deployed in the server, and whenever you send a request, it gets downloaded in your browser and you open it and read it, right. So this static content. So this type of static content, or any images, right, or any home page, right, static home page. So this kind of static page, load balancer can, what load balancer do? Load balancer can cache, right. So whenever any new request coming to get this data, load balancer doesn't go to server and return the data, right. Load balancer can directly send the data back, right. So this also a extra thing can be done. So all these things, decrypt the HTTP request, HTTP URL based routing, cache static content, these are the thing is the advanced applications layer level load balancer does, that is L7 load balancer does, right. But this basic task, that is spread of traffic, health check and single entry point, that gets done by the basic load balancer, that is L4, okay. L4 is the basic load balancer, okay. I hope you got it till now. So, we will discuss now what about L4 and what is L7. We talked multiple times, right. So, L7 is little advanced, L4 is little basic, right. So, we will discuss now. Okay. There are two types of load balancer. We have to choose when we design our system whether to go for L4 load balancer or whether to go for L7 load balancer. So, based on which conditions we will choose L4 or L7, that we will discuss now. Okay. So, what is L4 and what is L7? These two things first you have to understand. L4 is the fourth layer of OCI model. Okay, fourth layer of OCI model. So, what is the fourth layer of OCI model? That is a network layer. If you don't understand OCI model, maybe I will take a make a video about that. Just understand L4 means fourth layer of OCI model, that is a network layer. L7 is seventh layer of OCI model. So, that is applications layer. Application layer. So, that means this L4 load balancer works in network layer, right? Network layer in this TCP IP or UDP, this kind of network layer. And this L7, seventh layer of OCI model, that is applications layer load balancer, that works on HTTP. So, what that means? That means when it comes to L4 level of load balancer, that directly work on network layer. So, in network layer, you have to balance the load based on TCP request, right. So, what it does? It only balance the load based on your host ID, okay, or IP address, okay. It don't go into the HTTP related details. What HTTP related details? Whether you are sending a GET request, POST request, whether you are sending for details of any users or product, anything, right. It directly check the details from your TCP, from your network layer, and it just redirect your request. So, we will talk about now L4, okay. So, where we need to use L4, right. So, L4 is the basic load balancer. It only redirects request, right, based on TCP and network, right. So, it will only check source and destination IP. It will only check source and destination IP, source IP and destination IP, and it will redirect the request, right. It will not check anything else, whether you are sending for GET request, whether you are sending to get the user or product, anything. It will not check anything. It will send the request and it will distribute the request across your server. So, what that means? And it will eventually not do your SSL decryption, it will not do anything about caching, it will not do anything else. It is just a straightforward distributions of your traffic, and that is also in a raw data packet format, okay, in a raw data packet format, okay. So, this is what your L4 does, right. Then what is the limitations of L4? What is the limitations of L4? So, this is your L4 load balancer. This is now, suppose you are distributing load between two particular server, okay. So, now if the L4 load balancer works on TCP, right. So, it just check the host, your source and destination IP address, and it redirects your request to subsequent servers, right. Then what is the what is the challenges is you have to use L4 load balancer when you are distributing the load across same microservice, right, same microservice. That means if this is a user service, this is have to be user service, right. You cannot distribute load using L4 load balancer between user service and maybe product service. I hope you understood, right, because this L4 load balancer will not understand whether your request for user or product. Got it, right? So, it will have to be used in that situations where you are horizontally scaling same microservice. So, across same microservice it has to be used. Another benefit is it is extremely fast. So, what is the benefit? It is extremely fast because it does not do anything else, it just distribute the details, right. It is very fast, no network overhead, provides very less latency. Definitely, this is a basic very concept, definitely it will provide very less latency. So, where exactly this L4 load balancer gets used? Mostly somewhere where you need to have very less latency. So, where we need to have very less latency, where we need very fast processing. So, where suppose real time gaming applications, right, real time gaming applications where you need extremely fast processing. Another is video streaming. These are some of the example where you need extremely fast processing, fast request distributions. There you have to use L4 or network load balancer, NLB. NLB is a managed service load balancer provided by AWS, Amazon Web Service. Okay. So, this is the basic overview of L4 load balancer. So, next we will come to L7 load balancer. Okay. So, what we saw till now, L4 is a basic load balancer. What it does is just distributes the traffic based on your TCP protocol, right. So, based on your network, right. Now, it is coming L7. L7 works in application layer, right, and in the applications layer it distributes traffic. It can intercept HTTP request. So, just for an example as a diagram, suppose it is distributing load across 4 services, right. This is L7 load balancer and it is distributing traffic across 4 services. This is S1, S2, S3, S4, 4 servers, right. Now, what I said, it can intercept HTTP request. So, what it is happening? Suppose two request is coming, right. One is API / users, another is API / product. So, there are 2 type of request is coming. One is API / users, another is API / product. And for an example, in this S1 user service deployed, S2 also user service deployed, S3 is product service deployed, S4 is product service deployed. Just consider, okay, on a high level, just consider. So, now this request comes, this request travels API / users, right. So, if it is a L4, then it will not think about which HTTP request comes, it just think about what is the destination IP address, right, and it will directly distribute the load irrespective of any servers. It may distribute to product, even though it is asking for user, it may distribute to product in your L4 load balancer. So, that is why in L4 load balancer you have to scale only same microservices. Okay. So, because we are using L7 now, this L7 load balancer can be configured. We can manually give rule based routing, got it. We can manually provide rule based routing in L7 load balancer. Okay. One of the example is of L7 load balancer is in Kubernetes you must have used Nginx, or AWS has application load balancer ALB. These are the L7 load balancer. It works on applications level. So, if you have seen Kubernetes Nginx, you must have done the configurations. If you have not done, in future you can do the configurations where you can base rule based routing, where based on your HTTP request you can distribute the traffic for only user service. Okay, only user service. So, in AWS you can create the target group, and in the target group you can distribute the traffic. And if the request comes API.product, right, based on this rule based routing, you can send this request in this target group or product target group. So, what is happening in L7? You can do HTTP based routing, I mean that rule based routing. Okay, manually you can write where exactly you need to route. Okay. So, what is the next thing it can do, right? L7, what is the next thing it can do? It can do many things. It can do many things, right? What is the next thing? Very interesting thing, okay? Just try to understand, okay? Don't remember everything. Try to understand what is happening. It's a very basic sense. So what is happening now? Next thing what it does. So one user request comes. So what I said, user request always come in encrypted format, right? SSL encrypted format, right? For security purpose. So if load balancer will not decrypt it, then this application server has to decrypt and process the user request, right? But here what will happen in L7, this L7 load balancer, L7 LB, what it does? Decrypt the encrypted user request, okay, and sends a clean user request to app server. Got it? So what it does? So L7 load balancer will decrypt. So what happened? Then overhead on the servers will be very less, right? What is the next thing it do, right? So we send a request, right? And server send a response, okay? Then that response travels through our network bandwidth and it reaches to the client, right? This is what the process is. Now, this response size sometimes gets very big, right? Suppose you are sending a JSON back to the client and the JSON size is very big. So what we have to do? Sometimes we have to compress. What we have to do? Sometimes we have to compress that response and we have to zip it, okay? And we have to send it back to the client, okay? So this compression of response earlier usually done by server, okay? So this is the extra overhead for your applications, right? To again compress the particular response and send it back, right? But if you use L7 load balancer, L7 load balancer can handle this task. You no need to do compressing your responses from your applications. L7 load balancer, handles this work for you, okay? And it can send compressed response to the client, okay? So you no need to worry about anything, okay? There are a couple of more advantages are there, but on a high level, from the design perspective, what you have to understand, if you are doing horizontal scaling through one load balancer where you need to horizontally scale multiple microservices, suppose user service, product service, authentication service, multiple microservices under one load balancer, then you have to send rule based routing. It is more of like a API gateway also, we will talk about it later. So rule based routing, in this rule based routing, based on your certain rules, suppose you have given /user will go to the user target group, /product will go to the product target group. So that way that traffic gets distributed across the servers, okay, in L7. And L4 is a very basic, what I said, it gets used in a very high throughput or high, less network bandwidth area, okay, where we have to get very less, we have very less time to process the response, right? So like high end gaming applications, this kind of video streaming applications we use it, okay. So this is a basic use case of load balancer. Another, next lecture we will understand what are the algorithms this load balancer use to distribute traffic between the particular applications, okay. Oh, another thing I forgot to tell you that in L7, right, earlier we discussed about session, right, sticky session, right, sticky session. So if you use L7 load balancer, you can use sticky session, where what will happen in sticky session, each user request, okay, will always go to one server. Suppose if Sumit is logging in, okay, from his ID, that Sumit's user request, if it sends to S1, it will always go to S1, okay, it will never come to S2. So because sometimes we have to maintain a session data, right. So there are, in previous lecture we have seen sticky session, right, in load balancer. So these sticky sessions also we can implement in L7 load balancer, not in L4 load balancer, okay. This is the high level primary details that you have to know based on the load balancer. So in the next lecture we will understand the algorithms of load balancer of distributing the traffic, okay. This is it for now. Thank you so much.